Hello, my name is Liz Drake. I'm with the Community Engagement Team for the Houston-Galveston Regional Plan and look forward to the opportunity to give you some background about the planning process and to highlight opportunities to participate both now, as we are in an early stage, and then going forward throughout this two-year process. The regional plan is an opportunity to look at existing conditions in a number of key areas: housing, transportation, infrastructure, economic development, the environment, and also healthy communities, or the way that our neighborhoods look, feel, and function. But the key to the plan is not just that it's a snapshot of where we are now. This is really an opportunity to anticipate what our region, our communities, and our neighborhoods will be like 30 years from now. And so the main theme of the plan, in addition to sustainability, is being forward-thinking and forward-looking. The plan is funded by a grant through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development through the Sustainable Communities Program. But we want to emphasize that this is very much a locally driven process that is guided by 25 regional partners, including the City of Houston, Harris County, and the Houston-Galveston Area Council, or HGAC. They are joined by nonprofit organizations, educational institutions, local governments, private sector businesses, as well as residents throughout this process. The City of Houston, as well as Harris County, is joined by HGAC as part of this regional partnership. HGAC is a voluntary association of local governments that assists communities in dealing with issues like solid waste or transportation planning or hazard mitigation that cross the individual boundaries of any given city or county. And so they are part of the regional partnership along with stakeholders and residents throughout the 13-county area. I want to take a moment to say what the plan does and also what it does not do. Its intent is never to replace local decision-making, but to build on previous planning efforts. It is also an advisory document that offers a series of strategies to deal with many of the issues like housing, transportation, or economic development that I noted earlier. The intent of the document is to lay out a menu or options that local governments can consider, and they can adopt any of those that they think are the right fit for their local community. So the plan does not require local governments to adopt any of the recommendations, but we hope that local decision makers, communities, residents, businesses, and organizations will see value in the information and the priorities that the plan will help to collect over the next 2 years. This, of course, is the study area, the HGAC region, which consists of the 13 counties. It is, of course, very big, very complex, and very diverse. This 13-county area is 12,500 square miles, which is the equivalent of the state of Maryland. So, of course, there is a lot of diversity with communities that are rural, coastal, suburban, and urban. We'll be holding public meetings in all of the counties. We have currently held 20, and we'll be holding some additional meetings as we go forward into the process as well. So, of course, with such a geographically big and diverse region, what could all of these many communities have in common? Each of them, of course, is distinct in terms of the values, the lifestyle, the character, the goals of the residents who live within those communities. But there are also some overarching issues and questions that join the many communities that are part of the 13-county area. There are questions such as how will we create good jobs and prepare people to fill those jobs in the future? How will we make better and more efficient and more effective investments in infrastructure and transportation? What kinds of housing options will be available? And also really an economic bottom line for the households of the region as well. How expensive will it be to live and work in the region as it continues to grow and develop in the years ahead? So those are many of the overarching questions that the plan can help communities and residents and decision makers to explore. This is a simple timeline of the process. The plan is scheduled to conclude in February of 2014. We are at the very beginning, which is why we are glad that people are engaged and would urge them to continue as we move into later phases as well. Currently, in this first stage, we're focused on asking the question, what is it that we want to do? And so the feedback that we are gathering now will help to shape the vision and goals of the plan. As we move forward into later stages, we will also be thinking about ways to measure success. How will we know if we have achieved the goals that we have set for ourselves within the plan? We'll be exploring scenarios or different ways that the region can grow. We'll be gathering feedback from the public to help evaluate those scenarios to determine a preferred way for the region to develop in the years ahead. And then, of course, to be an effective plan, it also, of course, has to conclude with real action steps and implementation to put these measures into place. So throughout this process, we'll be revisiting with the public in forums and also welcoming online participation to gather the input that can help us to answer these questions as we move forward through the planning process. So why are we doing the plan now? Maybe stating the obvious that Houston is one of the fastest growing, most quickly changing, and now, according to statistics, the most diverse region in all of the country. If we look at growth trends over the previous decade, more than 1 million people came into the 13-county area, and that brought the total population to 6 million people. Forecasts indicate that those growth trends are going to continue. People want to live and work in an area that is prosperous and has the kind of quality of life and opportunities that this region offers. According to those growth forecasts, about 4 million new people will be coming into the 13-county area, and that will bring the total population to 10 million people. So that is significant growth, and with it, significant change. If we look at Harris County alone, there would be about 2 million new people coming into just the county in that 3-decade period. And the city of Houston by 2040 would have a population close to 3 million. And so with those people, we think of the kind of change that can be brought with people, with new households, with new vehicles, with new demands for resources and services. This is just a quick illustration of what it can look like and what it means when we have new people who are coming into an area. This is a map showing population density for Harris County in 2010. The darker colors, the darker red, represents those areas where more people are living. And of course, you can see this is already a fairly dense, fairly urban county. With growth trends continuing to 2040, we'll see a darkening of those colors as the population spreads not just within the city of Houston, but into other parts of the county as well. And so just an example as we begin to think about what it means when we have new people who are coming into an area. And so what does it mean for our everyday lives when we have this kind of growth and change over a period of time? It affects many of the daily conditions that we each experience. Transportation, how we move around, both within our communities and the region overall. What kinds of housing opportunities are available? Where jobs are and how we can access them. And of course also how expensive it is to live and work in an area. And so the regional plan is really a first of its kind opportunity to get out in front of that change and to shape it in a positive way that reflects the goals, the priorities, and the concerns of the residents around the region. Change is inevitable, whether we prepare for it or plan for it. Again, this is a vehicle to help guide and shape that change. Sustainability is the overarching theme of the plan, and in many cases, sustainability is a difficult word for people. It can be very technical, it can seem abstract, it can sometimes even be controversial. So as part of this process, we are asking participants to define sustainability for themselves. Sustainability means something very different to each person depending on who they are, what their background is, what their interests or goals are as well. We have a couple of examples here of what sustainability can mean. One of the most basic and relatable is the second, which is that sustainability is just a way of thinking about what kind of place you would want your children or your grandchildren or the young people of today to live in. We've continued to ask this question, and we'll do this through the first phase of the plan as well. And we have examples here of how participants from this region have defined sustainability. You can see that the answers that they have given vary. Some people emphasize jobs and economic competitiveness. Others talk about community and neighbors, or simply a way of thinking. And so we would encourage residents around the region to participate and define sustainability themselves so we can understand what people think when they consider what sustainability is and what it can mean for their neighborhoods and their communities. I'd like now to introduce the themes of the plan, which are people, places, and prosperity. The plan will have different strategies, and of course the plan does not recommend a one-size-fits-all approach to the region because of the diversity that exists. And so there will be strategies that are appropriate for coastal areas, for rural areas, for suburban or rural communities. But what they all have in common is that they do affect the basic building blocks of quality of life, and that is how people live, the places, the physical and natural environments in which they live, and also prosperity, opportunities for people, businesses, and communities to thrive in the years ahead. So that is a framework to help us to think about what the plan explores and what kinds of strategies will be identified. We've had a series of draft goals that we have been inviting the public to help us to think about and to assess the importance of. What I want to emphasize is that these draft goals are really just an initial starting point. They're a springboard for dialogue. We've been gathering feedback so that we can assess the importance of these goals and understand what people want to see in their own local communities, as well as the region overall. These goals have been developed by work groups that consist of about 250 individuals that represent the different types of communities around the region, so they are from rural, coastal, suburban, or urban areas, or they may also bring expertise in a specific area like transportation, housing, or economic development. But it is the feedback that we're gathering through our public meetings, as well as our online idea forum and our online survey, that will help us to think about the importance of these goals and to refine them and also to add to them as well. So we very strongly welcome input and feedback on the draft goals that I'm about to review in just a moment. Before we do that, we'll take an opportunity to think a little bit more about the kind of change that is anticipated for the region. We've talked about the population growth that is anticipated. And of course, one of the ways that that can affect the region is the overall built environment. And one of the ways we think about that is the way that land is used. This is a map showing land use in 2005 in Harris County. The key colors here would be yellow, which represent residential areas, or retail, shown in red. We also see areas of green, particularly to the western part of the county, to the eastern part, and a bit to the south as well. And so, as we think about the kind of change and growth that is anticipated in the decades ahead, we now look at a projected land use map in 2040. And you can see the significant increase in colors such as the yellow or the red, representing an increase in housing and retail to support the increased population. So another way for us to think about the kind of change that can happen to our built surroundings as we go forward into the decades ahead. Prosperity, of course, is very closely tied with jobs. And so this is a map that, much like our population map previously, shows where the jobs are. So the darker colors, which are shown in red or yellow, indicate areas where there are more jobs. Where you see green on the map, there are fewer jobs in those areas. So this is where employment is within the county in 2005, and really is a parallel to the change in population and land use that we saw previously. When we go forward and begin to think about where the jobs might be in the decades ahead, in this case in 2035, you can see the dark colors that continue to spread around the county, particularly along the transportation corridors. And so that is an opportunity to create new job centers or employment or activity centers as well, really as an anchor to prosperity within the county and within the region overall. Since we have thought about housing and thought about jobs as well, these are key ingredients to really a formula to think about affordability within the region. When we think of prosperity in addition to jobs, we also think about the bottom line for individuals and households within a region. How much will it cost to live and work in an area? Typically, when we think about affordability, we consider the expense of housing. How much does it take to buy my house, to pay the property taxes, and to maintain it? That is one measure. Perhaps a more complete picture of how expensive it is to live in an area is to also consider mobility costs or transportation costs. And so the Housing and Transportation Affordability Index is one more measure that helps us to understand the expense for households within a region based on the choices that are available to them. When we consider the average American family, for each disposable dollar, 52 cents is allocated right off the top for two of our most expensive elements of our lives, and that would be housing and transportation on a daily basis. So that is a significant amount of money that is devoted to where we live and our ability to move around our communities and the region. When we look more closely at the Houston region and see how it compares as we look at this graph, you can see in blue the percent or the amount of money per dollar that is spent on housing. In the case of Houston, it's 24 cents. That is a relatively low figure, indicating that housing is fairly affordable in this region. But if we consider the transportation costs, which are shown in green, that's 31 cents, and that brings the overall total for families within the Houston region to 55 cents. So it is comparable with many other metropolitan areas as well. So this is just another opportunity to think about how the choices that are available to us in terms of housing and transportation can very much affect the bottom line economics of individuals and households, both now and in the years ahead. So now that we've had a chance to think about what change may mean for people, for places, and also for prosperity, I'm going to show the draft goals, again with an emphasis that this is an initial starting point for discussion and for feedback from the community. These are the draft people goals, which are generally focused on opportunities to allow people to fulfill their potential as they define it. The goals include residents having access to adequate training and educational opportunities, to having opportunities to be able to live in neighborhoods with safe transportation options, whether it's walking, biking, transit, or driving. The chance to have access to clean and plentiful water, air, soil, and food to sustain health. And also the opportunity to be able to lead physically and mentally healthy lifestyles. As we look next at the places goals, and again, these are goals that are focused on both the built environment as well as the natural environment. The goals are about coordinating infrastructure investments, and that would be infrastructure, housing, and transportation, really to create areas of opportunity and to create healthy, attractive, and prosperous neighborhoods. It's also about preserving ecosystems, our natural systems, working landscapes, parks, and open spaces. It's about having a range of quality housing choices that can meet the needs and preferences of various residents. And also about efficiently using, reusing, and conserving resources within our communities. When we think next about the prosperity goals, again focused on both individuals as well as businesses and households within the region, the goals are about having a skilled workforce that can work in conjunction with an economy that is diverse, that is adaptable and resilient. It's about people having access to good job opportunities that support financial stability and quality of life. It is about transportation defined in another way, not moving people back and forth, but about moving goods within the region and connecting the region overall to other global destinations. And it is also about the region being able to embrace its assets, whether those are physical, natural assets, multicultural assets, or the history of the region overall. And that is seen as an opportunity to preserve the distinct character of the many communities that exist across the region. So those are the 12 goals of the plan overall. And the key focus of this initial phase of the regional plan is to gather input from residents on which of these goals they see as the most important for their community. We're also eager for people to add goals if there are any we have missed, and to help us to understand what their issues and priorities are within their neighborhoods and their communities, as well as the region overall. So in addition to the meetings that we have been hosting around the 13-county area, we're also encouraging people to continue to give their feedback throughout the process in other ways as well. We have an online idea forum at the MindMixer platform, which is available at ideas.ourregion.org. This is a social media platform that people can join at their convenience. You can contribute your own ideas. You can second or comment on other individuals' ideas as well. So it's a great way for people to be able to have a dialogue with other individuals, other residents from across the 13-county area. This platform is going to continue for the duration of the project. We're going to have rotating material. But right now, again, we're seeking input on the draft goals that we've identified here, as well as having people define the priorities and issues that they see within their local communities. We are also encouraging people, if interested, to become community ambassadors to this process. It takes only the short time to volunteer. People who do volunteer for this program will be given special promotional materials to be able to get the word out about the plan and to engage residents and organizations within their own neighborhoods and communities. We will also have training as well that will help to link people who are interested with other individuals, other networks, and other organizations who are interested in the kind of sustainability and quality of life themes that are part of this planning process. And with that, we encourage people also to continue to visit ourregion.org to look for upcoming meetings and additional opportunities to participate in the process. And I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to give you some feedback.